you know, the word emotion kind of distorts everything, because like when you take the letter E and you equate that to the word feelings, you kind of mess up the motion of things. So remove the E and keep moving. That's what you do.
Spitting that D to the IMP. He's spitting that D to the IMP. He's spitting that D to the IMP. Ain't nothing but pimpin' these days. He's spitting that D to the IMP. He's spitting that D to the
Welcome back to another episode of Elevated Dialogue here on the Uncle Junior Network. I am the Uncle Junior, and today with us on the panel, we have Antoine, the other artist, Christopher, Coach, Dwayne, we steal them Bulldogs, Dwyer, Victor, by my house, Viziant, and Roland from down the street. Welcome, everybody. Thank y'all for joining in. Shout out to all the unks, nephews, women, aunties, all of those people that are joining us this evening. Appreciate you for taking time out of your day to support us, to support the channel, all of those good things out there. Let's not forget about our servicemen. We salute you. Shout out to you. And shout out to the most elevated dialogue, that most elevated chat on YouTube. There we go. I was going to eventually get it right. You see what I'm saying? All right, so we're going to get into it. But before we get into it, man, I want to welcome Roland to the panel. This is his first time on here. Take a couple minutes if you want to and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Man, as you know, my name is Roland. I'm 22-year vet, and I'm just glad that you allowed me to come on your panel so that I can just get around brothers of like minds and just, see what's going on over on this side of the country, And, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, just turned 49 a couple of days ago. So, yeah, I'm just here just trying to, soak it in and see what y'all doing over here on this side of the planet.
I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you. I met you a couple weeks ago over on Coach's platform, Empowering Perspective. If y'all got a chance, go over there and check that out on Fridays, or Accountable Masculinity, Vic Code Talk on Tuesdays over on his platform as well. So all of those links will be in the description. But yeah, man, thank you for showing up. Happy birthday, belated birthday. And man, I'm looking forward to having more conversation with you today. But before we get really into the topic, I want to go around the horn real quick. Got a little icebreaker. Don't take all day, Antoine, but I would like to know what's one of everybody's biggest achievements of 2022. It's October. We got a couple more months to go in the year. I'm not really big on New Year's resolutions. I do set small goals continuously throughout the year. But at the same time, I may have goals that I try to achieve within a certain amount of time in the year. But I like to know, so far, it's October, what is one of your biggest achievements? Antoine, let's start with you.
Gee, thanks. Well, I always set goals, so I'm going to say my biggest so far, I say having to draw George Foreman and turning it into an NFT. That would be my biggest one. Yeah. That's it. In a nutshell. That's short enough?
I guess what I was meaning, a past achievement, something that you have already accomplished.
Already accomplished. I finished a couple's dog. Well, their dog is like their child, and their wedding picture. That was a big thing for me. That was a lot of work. Yeah, that kept me busy a long time. That's it. Yeah, that was my biggest thing for this year so far.
What you got, Roland?
I think starting. I've been wanting to get into this format where you either do a podcast or something, and we started pretty much like a Bible study, Saturday morning Bible study, and that's been going well. So that's an accomplishment for me because it got me out of my comfort zone and it allowed me to have dialogue with brothers on all type of levels and different facets of life.
Like it. I'll go next. My biggest accomplishment was getting married. Took a lot to get there, a lot on my part. Took a lot of growing up, took a lot of learning, a lot of understanding, a lot of conversations. And, long story short, that was able to happen. And that was the biggest accomplishment that I've. So it's getting. Coach.
Yeah. I've been the recipient of Roland's accomplishment. I've had the opportunity and the privilege to participate on his Bible studies on Saturdays, and it's just awesome. So I thoroughly enjoy that. For me, finishing my master's degree and actually being accepted into a doctoral program. So that's a pretty significant accomplishment.
So let's see. Milestones was getting Code Talk back up and going, while balancing out my regular schedule, because sometimes whatever your goal is, sometimes you got to do a lot of tedious work in between in order to make that goal come closer to you, so it's not such a big leap when it's time for your opportunity to present. Code Talk was a major piece to that. Man, what else? That's the most completed goal that I have right now that I feel like discussing, until other things close out. I got some other stuff working too, but it hasn't happened yet. So, but it's possible to go down.
Real quick, in case I missed it, I don't think anybody mentioned money.
Nope.
And I think that's significant. You know what I mean? I think, we all want money. We all not necessarily chase money, but we all understand the value of what money can do in our lives and stuff like that, and in our future and different things like that. But we also are men who understand the value of other things that's not money. Like all of us, Bible study. You know what I mean? Vic had some good news on something earlier today that he shared. You know what I mean? And getting a painting painted. All of these things. No one mentioned money, and I think that's significant. Just a heads up, if you're on Facebook, hit the like button. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button. All of those different things like that. Share, subscribe, while you're at it. So we're gonna get into the show now. As you know, the topic is, what do men bring to the table? You're a man, what do you bring to the table? We often hear about women. We're gonna switch it up a little bit. Men and women both have something of value to offer each other. If you plan on being married or in a long-term committed relationship with a certain level of woman, you will have to have something to trade in return. We often hear men ask women what they have to bring to the table. This is about men and knowing what we need to bring to the table to get the type of woman we want. But what of value do you have to offer a woman? So we'll start off with the first question of the night. And that's going to be, what do men have of value that women want? And anybody who want to jump on this grenade first, feel free to do so.
You said, what do men have that women want? Was that the question?
Yes, sir. What do men have of value that women want?
I would say structure and predictability. Like men that are, I guess, self-sufficient enough to even be in the market for a relationship, generally speaking, you got to come being able to make assurances, and you got to be stable and resourced in order to do those things. So that's my first take.
Yeah, I would say resources and stability. Resources, as in for what you can provide, with the roof you could put over their head, what you bring, taking care of that certain someone, and stability, meaning you're not going anywhere, you're solid, you know, you're on the grind, you're on your purpose, you know, and you know right from wrong.
I would say I like both of those answers. And I would have to jump in and say a knowledge of self, because we have a lot of people who consider themselves men, but are merely adult boys. So when you know who you are, you know what you bring to the table. You bring in the doggone table. You're not worried about what somebody else is bringing.
Explain more.
I think I think we grew up in a time where, and it's not about video games and stuff like that, but it's a time where we've been dumbed down as men, where people would consider masculine traits toxic because it's coming from a man. When instead of looking at it as this is just what men do and how men should act, and stop trying to nullify his manhood by his earnings and all these other things. Instead, if a man knows who he is and knows that his job and his responsibility is for wife and family first, then everything else falls in line.
Like it. Smiling, Coach. What you got?
No, because I love these responses, man. I'm gonna take a different approach because I mean, there's no need to say the things that have already been said, right? There's an idea for whatever reason that equality is a thing, and you hear it all the time. You know, equal rights, equal, 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 right? And I think equality has kind of been over glamorized, but I think one of the biggest things that men bring to the table is balance. I like to talk about the symbol, the yin and yang, right? You know, you take one of them out. You know what? When you look at it, it's a circle. It's all it is. It's really a circle. But when you take one side, whether it's the black or the white side out, it's no longer a circle. So what one of the most important things that I believe that men bring to the table is balance. And that balance comes by way of like vision. So men also bring vision to the table as well. Vision is important within a family dynamics because vision ultimately gives that family a mission. As long as that family has a mission, then that young lady has something to submit under. So that's where submission comes in at. So I think that's another part to consider. The last thing that I believe that men bring to the table is what I tend to call the gateway to agape, right? When you go back and study, it tells us specifically and clear, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church. So the gateway to agape is one of the biggest things that men bring to the table. Because ultimately, what we as men have to figure out is, what does Christ love the church? What does that look like? How do I do that? How do I mimic that? How do I take that and incorporate it into my life so that I can actually love, like Roland was talking about the family, right? So I can actually love, take care, provide, and protect for my family in such a way that we both are healthy in the direction of the mission that we are falling up under. So that's it.
Had to find that mute button, Vic.
I had already kind of said my piece. I didn't have anything else to add, but like if you want to add on to it, if I had to add on to it, leadership. Some people, it's not because they're not capable, it's because they are tired of being in that role. You know what I'm saying? I think a man should have a self-contained purpose before he, is even considering bringing somebody into his space, because that's the way it's working. If you're a man and you're trying to move into somebody else's space and make them see your vision, it's going to be difficult to do and to stay balanced without some predetermined metrics, that's discussed. Generally speaking, men face rejection when they face rejection in general, right? But the scale for rejection is reduced significantly if a person has a certain set of skills and experience to be able to make a certain type of assurance that isn't solely dependent on money, solely isn't dependent on, counting somebody else's pockets. Just can come in and just lay the groundwork where you can remove the conversation about the basic needs and provisions that it takes to just be in a relationship with somebody and have a healthy environment. So if you bring a whole man that's, invested in himself and being better, and he can speak from a place of love, vision, and growth, I think that it brings a healthy level of stability, not just stability. Some people have a level of stability that's predicted on chaos to chaos. You know what I'm saying? Negative event to a negative event. And then, the whole misery loves company thing, struggle love, anything. You know what I'm saying? There's a negative option and a positive option for everything that somebody wants. And it's based on what the person projects. Like, I always go back to this right here. A person can only have what they can afford and does not have anything to do with money. You know what I'm saying? This is that conversation that we talk about. Like yesterday, we talked about men of value, and then because that's kind of like the prelude to talking about what somebody brings to the table, so within that conversation itself, a man has to be of service, useful, and willing to put others' needs above his own before he can even bring somebody into his space. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like the contextual definition if I were to unpack what I meant about stability, So that's my expanded version of it since Garfield told me to get off my mic, and say something.
Actually, what I was saying was I was joking at myself. I know you have to crack me for trying to find my mute button. And
yeah,
I couldn't unmute my mic.
It's a double whammy. I made up for you. You know what I'm saying? I got you, fam.
Hey, I appreciate it. Hey,
another good thing that men bring, and I really would like to stress this, is protection over the family, because I don't think people really understand how, if a man has a solid home and doing the right things and putting himself in a position to excel, that protection he brings is such a weight lifted off. It's like when your mother and when you were growing up and your father and mother had that protection, right? You didn't care a thing. All you had to do was bring home good grades, wait for Saturday to come along to go out with your friends and play in the yard, because you had that solid protection of knowing everything else is going to be there when you get home. The food, the dinner, the bed is warm. Mom used to do the laundry, right? So they formed such a good protection. And I think when men have something like that and they take it into serious value, right, and worth protecting, it takes such a weight off of their significant other that they know all they got to do is do what their roles are, right? And the man brings that to the home, right? The things that you don't even want to stress about as far as the healthy, manly things and the protection, that knowing when you step out, somebody's got your back, your car breaks down, somebody's there to pick you up. Anything happens to you out there, you can make that call. Even after the police, you could still make that call, right? And it's nice. I would say it would be nice that any significant other would know that you got that kind of protection watching you. When you sleep at night, you could put your head down because you ain't getting up for the bump in the night. You're not getting up if the pipe breaks or freeze. You're not making those calls to the maintenance guy, right? You still sleeping. You're good. And I think we bring such a strong protection, financially, stability, physically, into the relationship. And that's not stressed enough for what men bring. You will never be able to protect yourself as much as a good man at home. Never. I don't care who you are.
Real quick before you go, I want to make something clear that I talked about earlier. We're talking about women, that are looking to be in long-term relationships or be married. These are the types of women we're talking about. So I want to make that clear too. Yeah. We're not talking about women who are just looking for that, or even men who are just looking to help. We're talking about people who want to be in relationships when we're having these talking points.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, Garfield, I think honestly, man in general, and when I say man, I'm talking about the human race, was not meant to be alone. We were not meant to be alone. Nobody wants to be that guy on the fucking park feeding pigeons. Nobody wants to be that person. I don't know about you, but nobody wants to be that. Nobody wants to be alone. I mean, it's always nice to call up your friends and say, let's go get something to eat. You know, when I see people sitting down and by themselves eating dinner, I'm like, I hope he's going home to somebody because he's looking pretty pathetic right now, right? But you always know when somebody's sitting alone and monitoring, or somebody's sitting alone knowing they have to get home. It's a clear difference, right? Because you act a certain way. You don't really pay attention to the stupid crap around you because you just want to finish your meal and get home to wherever you got to go, right? So I think that's very important.
Let me go ahead and say something now. So the other thing, when somebody brought up survival, I mean, not survival, but protection, and I wrote down survival because when you start thinking about protection and, you know, things that allowed that'll put you in a space where you're trying to, you know, conserve what you have in the most safest way possible, you're usually thinking about those things from survival mode. But men that are resourced and ready for a relationship and postured to be in a healthy relationship with the right outcomes, they take the survival element out of a relationship. So you can avoid going from chaos to chaos and experience, you know, some level of predictability, which goes back to what I was talking about before, the stability piece. You have to be able to remove the survival element, you know. So that's one thing I will say. The right resource man that's looking for a healthy relationship should have the ability to take the survival element off the table.
Yeah.
You got down there, Roland?
Oh, I was just thinking, I'm loving what they're saying because this stuff that me and Dwayne be talking about. But I think also a true man has to be able to know his limitations. He can't just buffalo his way through things and say, well, I make the money, so I'm paying the bills. You got a third grade math education. That might not be your forte. She may be better at it. So that's where you got to know, okay, she's better at this, so I'm going to allow this to out of my hands. Because if I do it, I'm going to mess up the bills. I'm going to mess this up. So instead of you messing it up, you allow those freedoms because you in charge of everything. You ain't got to beat your chest and say, I'm in charge, I'm in charge. Just the mere way you lead will dictate whether or not you're in charge. So I think knowing yourself and all those other things, when you know your partner and you like brother down here, he was saying survival mode. You're either in survival mode or thrival mode. When you can allow that survival mode to go to the wayside where you can thrive and your relationship can flourish, and then you can see the growth and everything, that's what men do. Men lead and they see where they can flourish. And you know, by no means am I perfect. I'm still going through where my wife, she got to say, hey, you know, it ain't working. I can't just say, well, I'm the man and it got to work. I got to sit down, shut up, and look at what she's saying because she's noticing it from a different angle. And I got to look at it from her vantage point and step back and say, okay, let me check myself, check my little pride, and going forward, what's best for the family.
So, so like, hey, go to the private chat real quick. Do me a favor with that. And I want you to copy and paste what I just put in the private chat. And see if we can put that somewhere where everybody else can read it. So I'm gonna read while he get ready to move that around. So I've written this 4-rule manifesto with a mission statement called the 4 Rules of Accountable Masculinity, right? And what you just got through speaking about was knowing when to lead and when to follow, right? So rule number 3 is based on decentralized leadership. It requires knowing when to lead and when to follow. And we must avoid misrepresenting fellow men. Although we are not perfect, we must have redeeming efforts. Meaning you got room to make mistakes, but they have to be made within the course of you doing the thing that you're doing. You can't go do something left field. Like you can't say, I'm leaving the house, I'm going to go cut grass, and somebody find you at a strip club. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And you out there mismanaging, misrepresenting, and everything else. You know what I'm saying? That comes along with making a decision that requires an explanation that You know what I'm saying, that you really can't give a valid reason for, other than just making a selfish decision, right? So, like you just said, you had to make a choice. Like even in that scenario we presented, like if you're bad with the bills, you got to take a back seat on this. And the other part you said about being in charge, right? A lot of men need to learn how to distinguish the difference between being in charge and then being in control. Okay, like if you're in charge, you're gonna get the blame and you're gonna get the credit no matter what. So that's in your space where you should be exercising decentralized leadership. If you've already earned the respect to be in charge as the leader, then you have to be able to submit to somebody else's suggestions if you want a positive outcome that everybody else can get along with. So decentralized leadership is very key as far as rule number 3 is concerned in terms of accountable masculinity. Because the goal in this is not to be engaged in an unhealthy competition with somebody else that you're supposed to be in a relationship with. And a lot of times, most people are in a relationship with their first hater because somebody doesn't know when to stop driving the bus or when to get in the back seat or the passenger seat. And sometimes when you're on the team, your most important role might just be pumping the gas. But either way, you have an obligation to make sure you win. And it's more important to win than just to be right. And most of us that participated in any type of organization where it requires everybody to bring their primary skill to the table to win, you got to be skilled in order to even be considered. So the most important thing in having a skill is not letting your skill be a substitute for what you can't do very well. Because a lot of people think because if you show up every day, that means you must know what you're doing. But plenty of us have worked with people that come to work every day and are the most, the most liable thing on the job site. You know what I'm saying? You know, if that person's over there, somebody gonna have to clean up their work or go back and redo it or something of that effect. So the worst thing you could do in a relationship for a lack of leadership is not balance your ego and be a burden to the person that's supposed to be there to take care of you anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like Coach Knight. I'm gonna work with Coach Knight. We're gonna give off, right? So, based off of all of our 40-something years of living, I'm gonna create a checklist real quick of what do men. I want to create a checklist of what men need to be bringing to the table. So, if you would say, "Hey, look, men need to bring this to the table," I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I do. It is okay. Feel free to, like, if you say something, to go in depth about it, so the viewer will be able to understand exactly what you mean. If it's not easy or if it's not just straight cut and dry, we want to start. So we creating a checklist of what 1, 2, or 3 different things that men need to bring to the table. If they plan on being a head of a household, or if they plan on being a head of a household.
Let's set some additional criteria to that.
Go ahead.
Like the implied things are that we know we need money. So let's just look at it from a healthy standpoint. Let's just look at it that everybody that we're talking about that wants to be in a relationship are already in position to be in a healthy, committed relationship and prepared to exchange. You know what I'm saying? And know when to stand up, know when to sit down, know when to take the lead, know when to take control, knowing the difference between those things, right? So let's come up with the criteria without money. Without, you know what I'm saying, any of the things that people bicker over, because there's other intangibles that never get discussed, you know what I'm saying, when it comes down to it. Sometimes it's organization skills and sometimes just straight communication, you know what I'm saying?
I'm okay with you. I'm okay with you going first.
Yeah, okay. Well, outside of money, right? You got to have intangible skills such as leadership. You should have networking skills that go along outside of your house, because the things that you do in the world help resource you at home, you know, and make it easy. So you have to expand your network, you know, and create other opportunities. And then a man has to also be able to create opportunities for other people that he doesn't necessarily get the credit for, but he still benefits from while providing purpose, you know, for his own household. He has to provide purpose.
You got Antoine. I see you unmiked over there.
I'm just, I piggyback off of what he said. I'm more, if we're going to take money out of the equation, because obviously we're providers, we've been doing it since the dawn of time. I'm going to bring in leadership, of course. I'm going to bring in stability. I'm going to bring in comfort. I'm going to bring in, you have to bring in the protection. I think that's what we're beat our chest for. I'm going to say these are very important things, again, to make the household run smoothly. They're basic things, right? Besides having the house to begin with. So I'm gonna say those are, for me, comfort is very important, and stability and protection. You have to bring that as a man, without question. You have to man up.
Coach, my Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
Sound like Antoine, don't it?
I need you to stop doing that, man. So
Hey, just FYI, that's what Antoine say every single
Every
week
time.
each before we come on the show. So I was just mocking Antoine.
moving right along. So I like where Vic went with it, but I think it's important that we go a step below that as well, because I think at that level, I think it takes into account assuming that those individuals may have already known some of the baseline things that they need to get there. So I think they need to, and Roland, I'm still a page at your book because I agree with you 100%. I think every man need to have a clear identity of who they are, right? So that means that they need to have a pretty decent, if not healthy, relationship with their mother and their father, so that they can continue to develop that internal picture of self. Next, I think they need to be emotionally intelligent. I think we've all know what it looks like when you're around a person who struggles with controlling their emotions, right, or self-regulating, right? So every man needs to be emotionally intelligent. They also need to have exercise mental agility, right? Don't be so stuck on your own picture of what reality looks like, right? You got to get to the point to where you can consider somebody else's point of view and then potentially come to the understanding that, yeah, maybe their right may be a little bit better in this particular circumstance than what I actually had in the beginning. I think effective communication is probably one of the most important things that we can come up with, right? Being able to communicate effectively across the board, understanding when to shut up, understanding when to listen, understand when to ask the appropriate questions to get a clear understanding of what your partner is actually saying, right? And then my personal favorite is understanding the difference between love and like. I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, because they go into a relationship that they will call unconditional and they go in it with conditions. If this person does this, all bets are off. Newsflash, that's a condition. And if it is a condition, then you should stay single and just realize that, hey, we like each other really a whole lot. And that's just it. So I think understanding the difference between love and like will help you to get to the point to where you realize that maybe I need to take a strong, hard look in the mirror and redevelop or redefine my perspective of what love looks like, so that I can get to the point of having a healthy relationship without the necessary conditions that I can impose on somebody else.
I like it. I'm gonna piggyback some too. Coach took some of the things. All y'all kind of took some things off my list. But one of the things I had there, like Coach said, is knowing your purpose. Like kind of sort of like knowing who you are, like knowing your purpose, knowing your reason for being here on this earth, and then having a plan, knowing what your plan is for the long haul, for the future. I think you have to have a plan. And I think you have to have effective communication, like Coach said, because you have to be able to relay that plan and that vision to the person that you're going to be with. So if you can't do that, the plan and the vision, they may not be able to understand it. And then, they can cause problems too. So I think we did a good job, man. How y'all feel about the checklist? Anything y'all want to change or adjust or something?
I got to jump in here. I know y'all took them all, but I'm gonna jump in.
Man, my bad. Cause I usually go last on stuff, man. So
yeah, I was just waiting. Y'all was taking out everything, but I said patience. Patience is one, because I think when you're not patient, it tends to show in how, like especially with your children or your spouse, whether they can come to you with hard things. If they can't come to you, they gonna go to somebody else. And that's like nowadays you see a lot of young children, they go to mama for everything. Because daddy gonna flip out, daddy tripping. Is that I got patience, I have leadership, as well as all you guys had it. And I said friends that support his vision for his family. Because you can have some friends, but that friend might want to take you away to do some things that really don't line up with where you're trying to go with your family, or what the spouse wants. Protection was one of them that you said, and a strong word of consistency. Your yay has to be yay and your nay has to be nay. No matter what's going on, none of that. Like, even if when it comes to discipline, you can't discipline from a premise of, okay, I'm gonna count to 5, because all you're doing is teaching them your limitations. And if you say you're gonna do something, you have to do it. Thick skin. Men have to have thick skin. You can't be the one in a relationship and something happened where, oh, I forgot to pay the light bill, and now you crying about it. No, you can't cry about it. Get it done. Get it paid. You have to have that thick skin and a listening ear. I think Coach was just talking about that. You have to be able to listen, not just with your ear, but with all your senses, to know what's going on in your household, to know how to manage and maneuver to where, children are different. Your spouse is different from the lady you was kicking it with 2 years ago. So you can't necessarily treat her like you treated this person just because that person appreciated it. Your wife may not like flowers, and you say, well, such and such did. It doesn't matter. You have to listen with your heart and your mind to your woman, not somebody else's woman, and not what Claire Huxtable did on TV. You have to have that listening ear for your household.
I agree. A shout out to the chat. Thank y'all for joining in. I see. What do y'all think about this comment right here from Walter? He said 3 things men need to be: leaders, teachers, and strength.
Check the private chat and go ahead and put up the last entry I just put in there, and I'll start reading.
I want to do the question first.
Yeah, I already got the question. I already got the.
Oh, you
I already answered it. I'm ready. You know what I'm saying?
I'm ready for it.
Go ahead.
All right. So to Walter Burchett's comment, I have accountable masculinity rule number 4, and it reads as such: legacy and equity. Live a life of service towards your community and others. You must be credible and capable of both mentoring and being mentored. You must be receptive and coachable. Being able to instill knowledge and wisdom into others is an act of submission and a privilege. So I've already written, like what I think you should be doing, because isn't it a shame to be a man of a certain experience in your 40s and not being able to teach anybody anything with your experience? So I think that men that live a life of service, that are dutiful, trustworthy, have decent integrity, and think about people other than themselves, I think that you have an obligation to teach somebody else something. So I agree with what Walter is saying right now. We must be leaders, teachers, and strength, and all of that comes from experience and packaging it up the right way.
So yeah, I agree 100%. And I think Walter, you jumped in early, bro, because you literally took my words, actually. But I think as a man within his own household, his first ministry is to his family, right? So with that being said, whoever you think you are out in the streets, you are that first within your house. And if you're not that in your house first, then don't do it in the street, because if you do it in the street, the only thing you're doing is slighting your family. So if I'm teaching anybody, if I'm leading anybody, if I am calling myself coaching anybody, like whatever it is I think I'm doing, I must do it in the home. Let's be completely honest, and I'm just going to put it out there. One of the things that we are called to do is to, and I might be getting ahead of myself, Uncle Junior, and if so, I apologize. One of the things that men, one of our responsibilities is to raise our children up in the ways that they should go. So we are inherently teachers. That means that we must first learn how to be taught. So if we're not falling under somebody who is actually teaching us something of value, then we're not bringing any value within the home. So that's one of the things that I really like about what Walter is saying here, because within your home, you are a teacher. Within your home, you are a leader. Within your home, you are a pillar of strength, simply because they need to be, they need to feel safe. I think Roland brought to the table patience. I agree with that. I would agree with the term patience, but one of the words that begin with P that I want to bring to the table is peace. If you don't create peace within your home, and if you are not the image of peace, then you have nobody else to blame when peace seems to escape your home. So you have to be that. So not only are you being that, but you're teaching that, you're ensuring that everybody understands how to handle themselves. And that goes back to the whole emotional intelligence piece. Sometimes you got to listen to the storm as she is telling you about her day. She's not being the storm against you. She is actually being the storm, or she is actually bringing to you the storm that she experienced. And she is dependent upon the peace in you to help calm her down. So that's just my add to what Walter is saying. I agree with you, brother, and thank you for sharing that.
Excuse me. One thing I'm not going to do is take this opportunity to get me some free chicken. So you mentioned image of peace. I've never heard that term before. I've never heard it before, but I totally understand what it is. And I know it means to be an example, but I would really like for you to expand on the man being the image of peace in the house.
Absolutely. I think when you consider, let's consider the workplace first. I think a lot of times when you have individuals in leadership positions, we're going to go through the ebbs and flow of the operational environment. So whatever is happening, whatever has been imposed upon our organization, we're going to experience the joys, and sometimes we're going to experience the pain. The one thing that people in your organization do not want to see is to see the leader panic. Once they see the leader panic, now they're panicking. So if the leader can have that calm, cool, and collective demeanor, actually being human, but helping everybody in the organization to understand that, hey, we understand that this isn't great, but we got it under control. We can handle that. Well, that's exactly what the man is supposed to be within his house. Life happens. Let's be honest. We just witnessed this past week, Hurricane Ian. You know what I'm saying? It was a very significant event, but trust me, every household that was able to make it through it, it's not that they didn't see their fathers or see the husband, understand what's going on and express a little emotion. But if he panicked, the whole family's going to panic. So you as a man, you have to be an image of peace. I'm not saying be unrealistic. Be realistic. Identify the facts. But then from that point on, you start identifying possible solutions and then talk them through with your spouse. That way she feels like she's a part of the process. And instead of panicking, now we're focused on being solution driven.
And I like that. Also, welcome to the show, Christopher. I'm young, but I'm ready, McClellan.
I'm young, but I'm ready.
Was that an R. Kelly shout out just now? I'm sorry.
Greetings, fellas. How is everybody this evening?
What's going on,
Real Chris.
Bless.
Glad you was able to show up.
Look, this whole conversation is about, like stability. One of the words that we started off with, like you can unpack that, you can come up with all types of synonyms to explain and unpack, what it is that we would like to bring to the table, or we have brought to the table, or currently bring to the table, right? One of the most important words that captures, the way that we explain this stuff is that we bring efficiency. Like we thrive on efficiency. Once we get tasks completed, we build momentum. Like we have small tasks that we accomplish along the way that let us know that our plan is working. You have reference marks, benchmarks. So we start getting certain types of responses from our significant other in the house and start taking away certain things that let us know that they're getting out of survival mode. Those things are reassurance, and men have to bring assurances and reassurance. All of this that we're talking about are just the same words in a different recycled way, and they just don't hit the right notes until you have the right conversation. Generally speaking, most of us are are working in positions or have worked in positions where we've been responsible for other people, and we know the value of trying to understand other people's dynamics. That, like when we talk about leading and trying to orchestrate what it takes to have a healthy family unit, so you can leave the house and go be the best version of yourself. So you can go in the wood line, hunt and kill, and bring back enough food for everybody to eat off of and survive, like the worst case scenarios. So we have to be able to be creative thinkers. We have to be able to plan for the worst case scenario, develop courses of action that allow us to mitigate, what may be coming at us, and sometimes we wind up protecting people that don't even know that we're protecting them, until they get out of their space. So that's where the thick skin comes into play. That's where all of the patience comes into play. And the main thing is that we have to be prepared to go into a fight to keep our people out of that same fight and out of survival mode so they can thrive the best way possible, so you can do your thing without regrets. Case in point, sometimes like you look at other people's relationships on the outside, and no matter how resourced they are, but Tom Brady went back to go play football, like for a split second, because he got people that depend on him. That's the thing he's done all his life to get to that point. And that's how he's fed himself and fed others and protected himself and taking care of everybody else around him. The one moment where he's in conflict with having access to the thing that he's always done, and he's worked himself in a position so he can walk away when he wants to, that's his comfort zone. So until he's ready, in the meantime, he'll spend the money. He'll do everything he's got to do to provide and protect what he's already, invested in his family and stuff, until it doesn't make sense for him to do so anymore, So that's the point, is that at some point, a man has to make a decision about what enables him to be the best version of himself. And if he can't do that, if he can't make that decision, can't be stern on it, he's going to have a hard time providing stability at some point.
Now, I don't know if anybody else want to tell, but Tom might be going through a divorce right now, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that him and his wife had got. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they
saw
already
that.
filed.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I brought it up, because
Okay.
Wait a minute, they filed? I thought they only got attorneys.
They both have retained lawyers. So like the other part of it is this right here. It goes back to the larger point. You can only have what you can afford, and it doesn't have anything to do with money. She got money and he got money. They both been rich. It doesn't matter. It's not a wallet tall enough that he can stand on, and there's nothing that she could do, you know what I'm saying, that can make him say, you know what, I want that chick with all the money. You know what I'm saying? He's already had everything. Some things are simply about, just feeling like you're the best version of yourself when you're in a relationship. You know what I'm saying? And if a person can't come along and be your infinity stone, why are you with them?
But and to push back on that just a bit, right? Because if you read into it, the only reason it's happening is because he did go back into playing football, because as a man, he's failing as a father, because he's not there for his kids. And that was the whole thing that started it, because he's not there enough for his kids. He had his time. She was patient. She laid back. She waited for that moment. She did what she had to do as a woman. And she asserted herself when he said, no, I'm going back to play. Well, you're going back to play without me. So he's failing as a father. And if you're going to talk about being that head, that household, that leadership, that's part of it. That's part of the sacrifice you make. And when you've had the time to play, you have to step up as a man and say, you know what? I got to be that guy for my kids now, right? And if you decide to go against that, which is going against your family, there is going to be a price to pay. And you're not the man you should be for your kids. So if you're going to do it, if you're going to really circle it, you got to put it full circle. You got to take accountability both ways. And if I was her and I had that kind of money and I waited how many years he's been playing to sit back and watch you do what you need to do and be the man you need to be, and I have my own money and you decide to go against what we talked about, I have no problem letting you walk away and divorcing your ass, because you're backing out on the contract we signed together as a couple. That's all I'm saying, and that's how I see it. If that's how the news is correct and whatever you read, right?
But I think we looking at it as if she's a housewife, and them kids sitting at home, them kids in school.
No. I agree with that. No. I agree with that, Mr. Roland. I agree with that 100%. But like I said, if she feels that he's not being the husband he should be towards the kids, money or not, if he's failing as a father to the kids, and I'm acknowledging that you're failing, but you said to me, I'm gonna wait till I retire. I'm gonna hang it up. I got a $300 million deal to be a commentator. I'm gonna take that deal, and then you get the itch again 2 months later to say, I want to be on a. Well, now you're going against what we both signed together and what we both signed up for. That's all I'm saying. And he's wrong if that's the case, because maybe what rich kid isn't with nannies? What rich kid isn't raised by nannies? Let's be real. She's not exactly. I mean, she has a corporation to run, right? So the kids obviously were raised in that environment. But at the same time, she's asking you to be the father that you said you were going to be once the game was over. Come on now.
I think that's more of a conversation than a let's get some lawyers and.
Exactly. I agree. I agree.
You know.
I agree. But that's the masculine side of her that's stepping in and going, no, I don't need you like that. I actually make as much money as you and have a tendency that I can make more. So no,
I don't even think money was part of the conversation.
Exactly.
I think it was more about alignment of passion. I know, like, just thinking of my own self and in a relationship, what would make me go back out and risk my safety, you know what I'm saying, when I've already accomplished every single thing, you know, like in one defensive way, like really Tom Brady affords her the opportunity to criticize his decision making. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, and on the other end of it, she's a 42-year-old supermodel. So if she really wants to go back out and go to work, we don't know what that looks like, you know. The other thing is too, we can't gauge if he's failing as a father. You have to ask the kids. You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Because there's plenty of video of him interacting with his kids, you know what I'm saying, in games, his kids having, you know what I'm saying, access to him on a regular basis. So I'm not okay with that idea that he's failing as a father, because number one, none of us have been professional athletes for as long. And then number two, nobody's been a professional athlete at the level in which he's been a professional athlete. And it's the first time we've heard anything about anything going on in his household. So he's provided enough stability for the last, you know what I'm saying, 7 years of his kids' life, or however old they are. But all of a sudden he's failing too. You can't have it both ways. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with
that. And that's my opinion based off experience.
Right.
You know
I'm just going off what, if you were to go off, like we say, we're only privileged to what the reporters write. That was one of the main things that she didn't like, right? She says, no. She goes, we talked about this and this is what we agree on. So I can only go off that.
And that's my point. See, when she has as much access and resource she has, she can have a publicist write whatever she want to write.
And so can he.
Yeah, but that's the thing. He hasn't responded. You see what I'm saying?
Why hasn't? But like he says, I don't need to respond because I got to focus on the game. That's what he said. I have to focus on. I'm playing now. I got no time for this. And they're not my lawyers for. You know.
So wait, let me ask this question. Are y'all saying that she filed because he went back on his word and went back to the game?
That was what was written in what I've read about what started it. Because after
what started it.
After he signed the commentator contract for $300 million, he got the itch to go back and play. And that's what whole thing started it, because the thing was he was supposed to be home now. That's what I've read. So I'm going just off that. And if that was the case, and she said he wasn't around with the kids, he missed a lot of the, he missed a lot of them growing up in certain precious moments. And she's like had enough, and she really don't, like you said, it's not a money thing. She probably said, that's it, I'm done. You're breaking the contract, and so am I.
And I think,
and
I think to that point, to get back to what we're talking about, like, again, fathers, we are responsible for raising our children. So if that is the case, if that's the reason, I agree with what Vic said 100%, that we'll never know until the kids actually start talking, in which you probably won't hear until they become adults. So the kids are the one who actually determine that. But going back to it, men, we're responsible for raising our fathers. Men, we're responsible for raising our children.
But I agree with that.
So I guess that would be another thing that men bring to the table.
When it comes to athletes, though, Chris, and football player, you can take the man out of the game, but you can't take the game out of the man. You can't.
I
Like
understand what you're saying.
A boxer thinks he can fight till he's 50. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying, Antoine,
Yeah.
but the basis of it is no matter how long you play, no matter how long you fight, no matter how long you run, you still need to be at home with these kids. And if you gonna say, if you gonna say, hey, okay, this is my last season, I'm just gonna do the commentary thing, and the agreement is set, and you go back on your word, what else is there? You see, that's why I'm saying that's another thing that men bring to the table. It's the other side of the parental function. You understand what I'm saying? And if you're not there to facilitate the other side of the parental function, that part of it, that huge part of it, besides all of the resources and the money that you have, the resources and the money that you have is meaningless if you're not there to fulfill your obligation as a parent, because you got other people to actually to tend to and to worry about. This is why when I speak of men of value, I don't do athletes and I don't do entertainers and I don't do things like that, because their money come different. They're in a whole different lifestyle bracket that nobody besides anybody who's in that industry would understand. But at base level, if you say I'm gonna be at home with the kids after this season because I done already won 7 championships and I don't have anything else to prove, and you not doing that, you failed on a huge level. You understand what I'm saying? So like I said, that's the other side of the coin that men bring to the table. It's the man sturdy, stable, disciplinary function of what a parent is supposed to be, because at that point it's not about you, it's not about what you want, it's about what the people that you brought into this world with this woman need. You understand what I'm saying? Right. That's what it's about. I said I was gonna be a fly on the wall and I wasn't gonna be doing much talking. See,
hey, Mr. Consistency up there, you know, like he been reluctant to chime in, you know. But I think he need to speak on this because, you know, that's not my word. That's his.
And I don't know nothing about this Tom Brady stuff.
Well, I think
nothing at all.
You see how I said consistency, and then he started talking because he knew it was about him.
Because I'm the consistency guy.
See, I think, but what the problem is that I'm seeing in their relationship, it's not consistency, it's security. She's not feeling secure in them because what's more important, football or us? And a man has to make his family feel secure that they are the most important thing in their life.
Absolutely right, Roland. And she has, like I said, she has everything else but security. She got everything else but security. And at the end of the day, man, I waited 10 years for you to be where you are. Now that it's time to us to sail off into the sunset, you decide to do the I'm going back to play thing, and I have to worry about your safety again because you're up there in age and can break like that. And then what? I'm stuck with you know what I mean? Look what happened to Tua.
Here's what I'm gonna say. Okay, I'm not taking anybody's side, but I will speak from someone who has retired. All right, 20 years in the Army. I said that after my 20 years, I was going to sit around, I was going to chill, and that was it. And I was going to get me a cush job and do another 20 years of it. That was the plan until I started sitting around. And I started sitting around, started thinking, and just sitting around and just doing nothing, not creating, not being a part of anything was hard. Started running a little bit, found my purpose, and fast forward a couple years and I'm here. So I understand what it's like to say that you're going to retire and you're going to sit around. When you've been grinding and working hard for so long, I think it's hard sometimes to just sit around and do nothing. I understand that he may have had a contract or a verbal agreement or an understanding with his wife. At the same time, he went into that contract maybe thinking that, hey, this is what I'm going to be able to do. I think that I'm going to be able to chill. I'm going to be able to put that life behind me. And then maybe when he started sitting around for a couple of months, he started itching. It's like, this ain't really me. You know what I mean? I'm still young enough to go out there and do my thing. So good, bad, or indifferent, I'm speaking from someone who has been retired, who is retired, sat around and then decided that that lifestyle was not for me any longer.
But you can't, it's not about you anymore. You got married and you made that, you listen, as men, we are the leaders, right? But at the end of the day, I think every man has to have that discussion with the wife, that what you agree upon. Just like you agree upon having sex every night, and she agrees upon to wear the sexy nightie. It's the same thing. If you have that conversation and you make that conversation, it's your man to bring the peace by agreeing to it. If you want to break the contract, it's not about breaking the contract. You made a contract with the woman you're spending the rest of your life with. That's a contract as well. So you have to understand, it's not, I can't take, if that's how it went down, you have to bring the peace. You're not bringing the peace. You're overstepping your bounds in your leadership role, because now you're not taking the family that you so protect and so want to about, and you're breaking it up. You're breaking up the home. You're breaking up the peace that you so want, because you want to go and find your own peace playing a game. But what about her? That you signed a contract with her.
Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah. So I got all that. Let me say this, and I said this earlier. This is what I mean when I say understanding the difference between love and like. I want to make sure I'm clear when I say that. I cannot divorce a person that I love, because I love the character of the person. If they did something wrong that I didn't agree with, we're going to have a conversation about that. But here's the deal, and I said it before. If there are conditions, it wasn't love, it was like. I think, Vic, you talk about this all the time, bro. When you start talking about these celebrities things, those are contractual marriages. Those are what we call contracts, or just simply conditional marriages. In other words, it's transactional. You do for me, I do for you. You do for me. As long as I'm happy, I'm staying in it. As long as you happy, you staying in it. But once we get to the point to where the conditions change, or something about the conditions change, or you make me mad, then you leave. That's the thing that we got to get out of doing. Like, understand the difference between love and like. When you love a person, first and foremost, you can't fall in love with a person. That's a whole nother conversation, right? But when you love a person, you love them because of their character. That's the thing that kept you at the table talking to them when you first met. Y'all had dinner, right? Preferences got you to the table. Character kept me at the table. That's what brought me at the next table and the next table. And so what you done had, we done sat at multiple tables, and we're connecting now. Why? Because we understand each other's character. We didn't get married within 3 months. It took us about 2 to 3 years before we got married, because I need to give you time to see if you change. Once I understand that this is the real, authentic you, I can marry that, because now I understand that there's a commitment there. You stuck with me for 2 to 3 years, and I didn't put it, as Beyonce was, I ain't put a ring on it yet. So now you're committed. And once we get to that point that we cross that threshold, if I make her mad, she is not going to threaten to, go get a lawyer or anything of that nature. She wants to sit down and have a conversation. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't go through all of this. I'm not saying that they didn't have a conversation and they got to the point to where they couldn't work out their differences. But trust and believe, if you love a person, like, let me make it make sense. For those of us who have children, if your child goes out there and do something right now, I promise you, they're still going to be your child. You're still going to love them. You're just not going to like the thing that they did. So I don't understand, how is it that adults view love differently? Because it's not love, it's like.
Well, I would say I don't want to put the celebrities. Listen, the celebrities, they marry for convenience, and they marry for their own purpose. They're not on anybody's level. They're on a different level of marriage and courtship. They date for a purpose and a meaning and all. Totally different, right? Because for them it is a contract. That's the first thing they're seeking out, is the prenup and who gets what, and that's a different level. Like in my own personal life, I can speak on this. Like I said, I took the extreme of working on my career. Women were secondary, and it stayed like that for a long time, right? But there was a time when I did have a girl, and I broke the peace because she said to me, no, if you go into your art room, you're going to draw and we're going to be late for the event. I'm like, listen, we do it. I'm the one driving. This is how it's going to work. I'm going to go and do what I do, right? So I knew right then and there I was breaking the contract because we had that discussion way before that she wants to be on time because it's important. So she sets it up that we're on time. And I took the wrong lead to go into that room and draw because I know once I touch it, I'm going to stay there and be late. So I take full responsibility in a discussion that we had way before that I'm going to be on time. And I broke the piece. And that was on me, right? So I could speak on my level that I'm the one that broke the whole piece thing. So sometimes I should have taken into account that, yeah, she's staying with me. Yeah, she's a girl. Yeah, I'm the leadership. But you know what? It wasn't my job to do that. It was my job to man up and say, you know what? I have to own up to what I agreed with you and go on that and be on time for that. That's when I have to drop, like Vic says, you know when to let somebody else lead. I should have really let her lead in that time. And I have to take ownership to that. Right? And that's what I'm saying with him. I don't know the specs. I'm sure this just didn't come out where they got lawyers. I'm sure it was building up. And then when they filed, it became public record and everybody found out they got lawyers. That's how I'm assuming it happened in their case. But I'm pretty sure when he retired and she stepped on stage with him and did the whole retirement thing and was right there holding his hand and he's doing his speech, she was all prepared for it. And I'm sure lawyers weren't even a thing. I think it came way afterwards when the season started and he's like, you know what, baby, I'm going to have to break that, what I said to you. And boom, she said, nope, I don't need you for that. And they said, that's it. Because they marry on different terms, I guess, when you're at that level. But a men's responsibility is also keeping the peace too. It's not about you. If you make a contract with somebody, you're going to have to live up to what you said to her.
The image of peace.
And I think that in situations like that, us who have retired so far, you've seen people, and it may have been you, that really didn't know who you were outside of your job. Because like you did 20 years, I did 22. And when I had to sit down, I had to learn who the heck I was outside of that job. Tom has to learn who he is outside of that job so that he can learn who he is and be a productive father, husband, and everything within that family structure.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that sums up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Army, you go left, right, left, for 20 years and you get back and, after a hard grind, you it's a lot of mental, physical labor and pain and stuff on your body and mind and everything, relationships. And you just like, man, I'm just done with everything. You want to sit around. At least I did. I didn't come out of the Army ready to grind. I came out of the Army ready to sit around and do nothing. And then it just wasn't for me. I couldn't sit down and do nothing.
I was medically retired.
Huh?
I was forced. I was ready, but I was medically retired.
Oh.
I had my years, but then I had 5 heart attacks, so I had to sit my tail down, and I couldn't move.
Sheesh.
So I couldn't drive. My chest was split open. I couldn't drive. I couldn't do it. So I got to sit there. My wife got to take care of me. She got to do everything. So it's like, and I'm used to getting up in the morning, doing PT and running. So I'm used to telling people what to do. Now I'm trying to dictate my house. Hey, do this, do this. Like, hold up, you ain't Sarah Walker in here. And so I had to learn a new dynamic. And that's a hard thing. I had to sit for a year. And then I started doing things by myself, learning to love being alone. Because when you used to being with people, you don't like being alone. And when you're around people, you can be in charge. You can be this because you really are insecure about who you are.
She's actually Colonel Walker at his house, by the way.
I thought she was in general. I thought she got promoted, man.
Yeah.
Hey, one thing I do want to go around real quick before we get into the final thoughts is protection. I want to, there are all different types of protection. It's been thrown out there a few times a day. That's one of the big talking points that a lot of people say that men bring to the table. We bring protection. A lot of guys, they sit over there in those other space and they beat their chest, and they couldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight. Ain't had one.
I'm gonna start using that.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I would like to dig not too well as deep as we want to go. I would like to have, clarify or bring to light a little bit more understanding of what we mean when we talk about protection. Because some people say, "Oh, well, I got a gun," or you like maybe look at Antoine, like, man, that little dude can't do nothing. You know what I mean? He's short unless he stand on his wallet. So it's like, I just kind of want to go around the horn and kind of see what people think about protection and what that means as far as when you say I bring protection. What do you mean by that?
I would say protection of oneself, because we bring that protection of like, we know when to back down, right? We know when to back down. As a man, you have a good keen eye because you're so used to being in battle that when, some fights just left for another day. We bring protection to protect you from yourself. That's the whole thing. Protect you from yourself and the danger you may cause yourself and you may cause the family. So we're able to just grab you and say, not today, and walk away. It's like when two men go at it, woman steps back and say, baby, please, let's not fight. Let's get out of here. You got to calm yourself down and say, you know what? You're right. Let's just walk away. So I think when I say in a form of protection, not necessarily only strength, that's for the physical stuff and the lawn and all that crap. But I think protection from oneself is what's important.
When you talk protection, Antoine, you kind of hit it on the head. It's preventative.
Yeah.
Protection comes before something bad happens. Protection is, okay, I see how this might play out and it might not be a good thing. So I'm going to take everybody away from this because It's not about me. It's about me and everybody who was under my protection. It also means, hey, you about to do something that's about to mess all of this stuff up. So sit your ass down somewhere. I got this. I understand you got your opinion. You are valued counsel. I am always going to hear you out. I'm always going to hear what you got to say. But at the end of the day, the final decision rests upon me. So I got to make sure everybody's cool. You just got to make sure the kids are cool. I got everything else. And sometimes that means get the hell out the way. I got this. Move.
Yep.
It's not about money. It's not. It's and you know what? I take that back. It kind of is about money, but that's just a component of it. It's not. The money just gets you there.
It's about being well-rounded and in a healthy capacity overall. Because,
right,
you have to be in a healthy space, or you should be rather in a healthy space before you even get to this conversation. Like you're at a decision-making point, and it's a lot of things that should be assumed. Like, for instance, if you go to work and you get to your desk or whatever it is that you do, that's not the time to engage in your personal needs, right? It's kind of assumed that you've done everything before you got to this job that pertains to your personal life to not interfere with what you have to do on behalf of your existing obligations in the time frame that you obligated to deal with them. You know what I'm saying? Like some people have jobs where they can't take their phone on the job, right? Or into a certain space. My point being is like you got to fulfill the existing obligations that you already have, which is like if you agree with something on whatever exists outside and has to work with what you have. So as a man, you have to bring the synchronization element to what's going on, because all of us have individual goals, and this is where you get into the love and like thing what Coach was talking about. If you just like somebody, you will sacrifice that element to go do the thing that you want to do, the thing that you're gonna do no matter what. So if you're actually in a situation where it's a loving, healthy relationship and there's a equal exchange or or equitable exchange between most people, because sometimes it's not equal. Sometimes it's 90-10, sometimes it's 70-30. It's good days and bad days. So within that spectrum, duty has to be the key component to allow you to stay on task, which goes back to what Coach was saying. You love a child, you love them on the good days and bad days. You know what I'm saying? And everybody here has been a child at some point. And if you have been thrown away by every bad thing that you had done, then, you know, you wouldn't be fit for a relationship. You'd have a lot of other situations going on. And some people in a relationship can't say oops. Can't afford to say oops. Certain positions that you have, you can't say oops. The pilot can't say oops if he's flying a plane. It's way different if the pilot said boom, oops, and you 30,000 feet above Earth. You know what I'm saying? And then there's a big difference when your kid says oops after you hear a loud sound. And if you don't hear a scream or nothing after that, they probably just broke something that was, you know, hopefully it wasn't too important or too expensive. But there's two scenarios where based on stature, status, age, you know, whatever you want to call it, that don't have anything to do with money, just about duty and responsibility and following through. That certain people are not afforded the opportunity to say oops. And I'm saying that because men that are listening, you need to go into every situation with the idea that you cannot afford to say oops. So don't put yourself in a position that forces you to go outside of your ego and not use your ego in a negative way. You know, show that you can sit back, take some counsel, some coaching, and be receptive as well. Because if that's what you want in your house, you have to also be able to display that you can do the same thing.
Agreed.
So I think protection is simple. Real simple. Just have pep talks, man. PEP. I think somebody said physical already, right? Psychological, emotional, physical. That's all it is. Chris, you brought up a good point. It's something that we do in the beginning. So we are proactive protection, right? Proactively setting the conditions for the security that we want to have long term. So my man Walter mentioned it earlier. Men are teachers. If you're not spending time teaching, talking, and encouraging, helping them to understand what forward momentum looks like, then you're not doing the necessary things you need to do to protect your family from a psychological perspective, from an emotional perspective, and let's just be completely honest, from a physical perspective as well. Because here's the situation. If you don't necessarily have a good understanding who I am, you may put me in a situation to where there may be a physical altercation, all because you got the running off at your mouth in the wrong place at the wrong time. So again, pep talk, physical, emotional, and psychological. We need to set the conditions for those things to be protected at all times so that we can exert the minimum amount of effort whenever calamity comes our direction.
Everybody went. Everybody talked about protection.
Oh, mine was I was waiting on everybody. I think sometimes we have to protect the family from the stupid ish that we might have done as single us, because we still might feel a little froggy, see a little something, chase a little something. So we got to check ourselves. That protects the family also.
You pretty much said protect you from yourself.
Protect the family from me. Yeah.
That's deep right there on so many levels.
I got something to add to that too when it's time on the final thoughts, because that's pretty dope. I was really just over here scribbling that.
That's you hadn't already, thank you for hitting the like button, share, all those different things. Feel free to share it, subscribe, all of those different things like that. Walter, see your comment, dude. At any time, let me know. Shoot me a DM. Lastly, what we're going to do before we close out, we're going to go around the horn with our final thoughts. Start off with our order march. It's in the private chat. Chris, you up first, brother. You muted.
Final thoughts on what men bring to the table. It varies per man, but I am going to say this. The value of a man has been greatly diminished, and we need to bring that back to the forefront. Men are needed, men are necessary. You need us, no matter what mainstream media or whatever feminist you got in your back pocket tells you. You need us just like we need you. You need us to protect you even from you. You need us to put you in a place where you can actually relax and you don't have to worry about it. Somebody said it earlier. Men are necessary to put you in a position where you're not in survival mode because you have him to rely on. That's what we're here for. Men, we need to get back to where we used to be, where they could actually trust us enough to rely on us in the first place. We have to raise the bar because the bar is too low. And I guess that's my final thought.
So I guess that means I'm next.
No, Antoine next.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't know that. Sorry about it. You know, I'm gonna put money back in there as men need to be providers. We need to be that foundation. It's a great countertop, but you need to be the four legs to hold it up. I think that men need to be the emotionally checked ones, always have that strength. And if you want that dime, it's going to cost you money, and you better be able to afford what you can, right? Because you can want what you want, but don't have delusional results without being able to back up what you want. You know, don't be a dictator and a leader without even a little army. Like, you can't, right? You have to back up what you want, and if you're going to back up what you want, be able to provide for it. Period. Don't, you know, all this. I'm not into all this submissiveness and all this crap. No, but I know what I want and what I'm capable of doing. And if you're a man, if you're really a man and that's what you want, you have to be the provider. You have to be the strength. You have to be the four legs on the table. Period. That's how I see it.
So I'm gonna go back to some of the conversation that Uncle Junior and I had last night on Code Talk, and the topic last night was man of value, and I kind of like prefaced that topic before this one because you got to have a contextual understanding of what it takes to even be in this conversation. This conversation is aimed at men who have a certain level of experience, ready for a healthy outcome with somebody else, and you know, people that is in a healed space that's ready to do things from a space of love and not survival. So in order for the table conversation to even be relevant to the people that we're talking about, a man has to have code and a man has to have value. Nobody is relying upon a useless man or a man without skills to lead their household, you know. So being a man of value, and one of the notes that Chris brought to that discussion last night was a man of value is just not easily replaced. So you bring discipline, discernment, logic, you know, ego management, conflict resolution skills, and you have an overall goal and vision of efficiency and predictability, which brings us over to this end discussion. We have to be in position with the thick skin to provide the quality of life that enables us to protect us from each other sometimes. And as a man, you can't be relying upon anybody else to do that. Nobody else is coming to save you. And it's up to you to protect those boundaries and make sure that your no's mean no and your yeses mean yes.
Well, a lot of great stuff been said tonight. I hope if you're listening, I hope you're taking notes. I think I'm going to end off with this. You heard a lot, and I'm sure if you listen every week, you hear a lot. One of the things that I would say is don't get too caught up in the overwhelming information that you're getting. You're getting a lot of information. So first and foremost, just keep in mind that you can only do one thing at a time. So pick something, focus on that, and then get better at doing that. One of the things I mentioned earlier, I talked about balance, not equality. I talked about vision, which leads to mission, which gives someone, given your future spouse, something to submit to, submission, right? And I also mentioned that men are gateway to agape because we are supposed to mimic. We're supposed to love our wives like Christ loved the church. So we're the gateway to agape. I think within the scope of that, having a clear identity. So again, that means that you may have to repair some relationships. So you're going to have to get good at having very uncomfortable conversations. In fact, that's where you hang your hat. Regardless of what anyone else tells you, you have uncomfortable conversations with parents that weren't there. You're going to have uncomfortable conversations with your future children, especially your teenage children. So get comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations, right? Get in the and I'm this is just where I like to hang my hat. Get in the Bible and understand what it means when when it talks about Christ loving the church, right? He sacrificed himself for the church. So you need to understand what that looks like so that you can actually bring that to the table, not just haphazardly for anyone, right? Because there's other criteria that's in there as well. So we need to make sure that we understand that. Also, there's no blueprint to raising children. You got to raise your children, man. Get in there, understand what that looks like. There is one blueprint, right? But again, you have to get to the point to where you actually get in there and learn through failure, right? You're going to fail while raising kids. You're going to make some mistakes. That's okay. Every parent that I know have made mistakes, and the ones who don't agree that they made mistakes, they're lying to you, so don't listen to them, right? Get in there, help raise your child. Don't walk away, don't leave them, right? But again, it's also have to be some type of balance that exists between you and the mama. And you got to get to the point to where you are so full of good, godly information that you are of good counsel to someone else. So find somebody, mentor that somebody so that you can leave a legacy that doesn't just consist of your family, but the extensions of your family as well.
I said knowledge of self, being self-aware, because when a man doesn't know who he is, he can't have a vision for his wife, his family, or whomever. And when he is self-aware, he's not threatened by anything that she brings to the table. He looks at everything that's brought to the household as an asset. So being self-aware, you have to have a sense of security already. So ladies, if a man is already looking at what you have or don't have and this that, he's not ready for you. He's not mature enough to handle you in a sense to where he can be that sense of stability for you. So don't tie yourself to men just because he looks a certain way, just because he has a nice bill, because that's what people do. Like I think Coach was talking about the difference between like and love. All too often we find ourselves looking at things that we like, and then when they do a couple of things for us, we say, "Oh, I'm in love." No, you just like the way he made you feel, and that's not love. Is not just a feeling, because sometimes you feel bad, but you got to keep moving. So when it comes to loving, you have to always be in a forward progress motion. You cannot sit up and think where I'm looking at anything that she's doing or not doing as to why I haven't done what I've done. So mine is being self-aware and just having, just that knowledge of self so that you can be the staple for the family, and she or the family doesn't have to look to anybody else for whatever. So when something happens, they're looking to you for the protection, for the provisions, and everything else. That's all I have.
Amen. Those some great final thoughts. Before we roll out, I want to thank all of y'all for joining today, the panel members, everybody in the chat, everybody who watched on YouTube, everybody who watched on the Power Perspective podcast, everybody who watched on Uncle Junior Network. If you want, I dropped the link. Uncle Junior also have an IG page. Feel free to join that one. If you did not take notes, I'm gonna suggest you go back and watch this video. This was full of chicken, full of free chicken tonight. This is one that you probably want to mark. You probably gonna want to notification, like all of those different things, to make sure you go back and watch this video. Share it with your friends, all those good things like that. Also, that checklist, bro, I'm going back and watch the checklist. I'm probably gonna make some post about it. There was a whole bunch of free chicken tonight, man. I was over here getting full. And I say that not only to promote the channel, but also because I really think that this was a good podcast. And they had a lot of great information from a lot of great men up here. So this is one that you definitely want to share. Other than that, man, I thank everybody for being here. Thank everybody for everything that y'all do. I appreciate it. And we're going to see y'all next week. We are out.